My doctor, he said, we're probably going to amputate you sooner than later. Man, I sat in a room for a minute. I just needed a minute, and then after that, I thought, man, who is he to tell me I've got to cut my leg off? That's not happening. I'm not doing it. And something just told me, uh, if you work hard enough, this won't happen.
Deputy John is a true inspiration. Over the next hour, we are going to hear his incredibly inspiring journey with peripheral artery disease, that poor circulation in mainly the legs. It's a disease more prevalent and deadlier than most cancers combined, and it is a fight every day for every step these PAD warriors takes.
Save My Piggies, your life, your limb, your story, with hosts interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips and Global PAD Association CEO Kim McNicholas.
So, Dr. John, this is going to be a powerful Save My Piggies special, and I can't wait to jump right into John's story.
Yeah, normally we spend a little bit of time talking about a moment of inspiration, but hearing John's story, reading a little bit of the background, and obviously you're closer to it than I am. He's going to be our moment of inspiration, or provide moments of inspiration. Plus, there's there's a show on Netflix. There was a show on Netflix a while ago called The Wild Whites of West Virginia, and I think John may know some of these cats, and we have to talk about that for a little bit because that is super interesting to me. But it's not about PAD. Today is about Save My Piggies and about John and his fight to save his piggies, and so it was pretty a little hairy there for a while for him. So let's get into the story. I want to hear more from John and his fight, and he's an inspiration to us all.
John, you are such a strong person. Your mindset is incredibly strong. Your body incredibly strong. Your fight is just unmatched. And that's probably with that why you got into the force in the first place. Can you bring us back first and tell us what drew you to want to join the force?
As a kid, I wasn't always the best kid. I was a little bit of an outlaw.
No, you were trouble. You were trouble.
Outlaw, just like the Wild Whites. They're outlaws too.
Not quite that bad. Not quite that bad. My mother was a police officer, and so was my father.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, my mother is my biggest inspiration. My dad was a deputy sheriff, and he resigned to run for sheriff. He lost the election. My mom said it was a terrible idea, and he said, well, being a police officer is not easy. If you think you can do it, go do it. Well, she took the test and did it for 25 years. And
Gosh.
yeah, she's
show
always
you.
Been, yeah, she's always been my oil in the fire. She's always, not to bring up bad things in the world, but during September 11th, when it first happened, my mom said if John would have been on one of them planes, that plane would have been landed. And I'm like, well, Mom, I've never landed a plane, but I appreciate the love. So, but that was my biggest inspiration, was my mother and my father. And
so how did you decide? How did you decide whether you were going to be a police officer or a deputy sheriff? Because Mom was the officer and Dad was the deputy.
No, they were both deputy sheriffs. Here, a deputy sheriff is pretty much the main source of law enforcement, I guess.
Okay, so they're almost synonymous there.
Yeah, they go by, here in this state, they go by deputy sheriffs are constitutional and anything else is legislative. So we kind of take precedence over everything. So
I love that. But you're also a school officer now, school resource officer.
Yes, yes.
And at one point, though, you didn't think that you were ever going to wear that badge ever again. Bring us back to that moment where your life changed almost for good.
Kim, I think everybody in the room thought that, but me. I was scared. I'm not going to lie, but when he first told me,
John,
started talking about.
Real quick, John, before you get into this, is the meat of. I think you're going to get into the meat of your vascular kind of story, but take us back to. If I was watching a video that you had given and you were saying that, hey, I was a big guy. I was one of the bigger guys on the in the academy, but I could outrun them. But I noticed I started getting these cramps, and I didn't think much of them. Just thought they were cramps. So is that kind of the start of your vascular journey?
I think it was. At the time, of course, I dismissed it as cramps, and I dismissed it as
how old were you? How old were you at the time?
Probably 30.
Okay.
I was assuming that I wasn't getting enough hydration. It was a little mean to us sometimes. So we had to earn our water privileges almost. Like we had to drink out of a cup that they gave us that we got out of the bathroom sink. I felt, it was warm and it was nasty, but I felt like maybe I was just dehydrated was all that was. And then they sent me to the nurse once actually, and she shoveled some Gatorade down me, and I went back to work. But I started noticing the cramps were, any other time I had any muscle cramps, a few seconds, and I was good to go. But man, this time I had to wait a minute or so, and kind of be down a minute. But when it was gone, it was gone. And then when I'd get back to running, at first I could run like a deer. Then for a little bit, it just started almost like my leg was being squeezed or in a vice. I had no idea what peripheral artery disease was at the time. So I had no idea to even think that. And later on, as I got out of the academy, I started working the road again, and I ended up with a cut on my foot. I'm going to skip a big part of my journey, but that's when I was told I had peripheral artery disease, my doctor set me down. He said, you're not diabetic, you're not pre-diabetic, but this wound is not healing. He said, you have peripheral artery disease. I'm going to get you checked for it. And man, he had me loaded up, and bam, they were like, yeah, that's definitely what you got going on.
But you had a moment though. So how long between the first onset of these cramps, you were still in the academy, to you continuing your journey on the force? When was it your boss actually said, I think you have a blood clot? This was prior to your actual diagnosis, or was this?
Oh, yes, that was it. Yeah. Like I said, I skipped that whole part just to get to the part of where who told me I had peripheral artery disease. But yeah, a couple of years after the academy, I was driving along, and I'd had some soreness in my leg, but not enough to really make me worry. And as I was driving, it was just an insane pain. I had to pull over on the side of the road, and he was my lieutenant at the time. He's retired now. He came up to me, and he was going to take me to the office and then take me to the hospital. And I told him, I said, I'm fine now. It's just, it's past. And he said, no, I think you got a blood clot. And I was like, okay, yeah, well, you're not a doctor, so you don't know. And well, come to find out, he was right. When I got to the hospital, they were talking about flying me to a better facility. And one of the first things they said was how much does he weigh? And they're like, he's about 285 pounds. And they're like, yeah, we ain't gonna be able to fly him. I was like, yeah, you're not putting me on a helicopter. It's not gonna be able to fly me. That's for sure. I'm not doing that. And
is there a weight? I didn't realize there's a weight limit.
yeah. In the helicopters they use for like medevac and things like that, there is a weight limit. Sometimes they'll throw a paramedic out if the patient's going to exceed the level if there's no other choice.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, they'll just toss one of the paramedics out the side, not while it's flying, but when it's on the ground, they'll toss them out of there and send them. And there was 6 or 7 attempts to get the blood clot opened up, and they weren't successful. And they told me that I was going into compartment syndrome. Never heard of that either.
So what? I mean, we've got like under a minute left here, and we'll continue it in the next section. But what were you thinking? Like, I just went to work. My leg's been bothering me. Now all of a sudden I've been shipped someplace, and they think my leg. Like, what? That's got to be.
Yeah. Well, I was just kind of in the information gathering stage. Sure. I didn't really understand what was happening. None of it made any sense to me. And then the pain set in. And once the pain set in, then I went into compartment syndrome. They did a fasciotomy on my leg. I had no idea what that was. I didn't know anything that was happening to me. And eventually they gave me go ahead.
Well, coming up right here on the Heart of Innovation, we're going to continue this story. I think we're going to kick it off with Dr. John explaining what a fasciotomy is and what leads to it. So stay with us. You don't want to miss a moment of John's journeys. So don't go away. This is a Save My Piggy special for the Heart of Innovation on KDOW.
How many procedures are you willing to go through? Is it worth going through that many, or would you rather just step
That's funny. Was it worth it? Oh yeah, I have my leg, man.
Amputation should absolutely, positively, 100% never first-line treatment.
What an incredible operation, what an incredible lab you have here.
Without a doubt, we're underdiagnosing peripheral arterial disease. It has not gotten the attention that it should because it is a killing disease, it is a disabling disease, and most importantly, it's a disease that we now have great treatments for.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
They were going to amputate it, and I needed to consult with my family. Did I want it off here or here? You're just shocked. It's scary. I don't even know how to explain it. You're 42 years old.
We're waiting till people are at the end of the spectrum and almost beyond hope. There is good care available here. Closed minds are what we have to get rid of.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. A special, well, actually, they're all special, say my piggies, because we get to hear from a patient who has suffered from some type of vascular, I wouldn't say a catastrophe, potentially, but something that is potentially life-threatening. And John was just telling us in the first segment how his leg, presumably, John, you had a blockage in one of the arteries in the leg that had led to such significant lack of blood flow that the leg was threatened, so potentially you could have lost the leg. And in some instances, when the blockage has progressed, or sometimes actually when we clean out the blockage and then you get better blood flow, there's swelling, or we call it edema, that occurs. And each kind of muscle group or each section in the arms and legs have what we call compartments, various areas where muscle is kind of entrapped or housed within the fascia, kind of separate things, and then within that are the arteries, and it's a fixed area. And so if the swelling gets so bad, it can just cause so much tension there that then the muscle starts to die, and you have to basically relieve the tension. Okay, it's kind of like popping a zit, kind of. You just have to let it out. And so he had fasciotomy, where they kind of flayed open the fascia to let it breathe, so let the muscles breathe, so to speak. And presumably, John, that saved your leg and kind of helped relieve some of the symptoms.
Yeah, the way he explained it to me when I came to and he was explaining what happened to me was it was like he filleted open a fish. He said, he went down both sides, and he said, he said you were in a spot of either that or you weren't coming out with a leg.
It's like making an incision and letting the eggs come out. Like it just, they kind of got you through this acute event with the fasciotomy.
Yes.
Is that right? The dust kind of settled.
Yes.
And then
my family doctor is the one who was really quarterbacking everything and getting everything ready for me. And he said, I want to get you in and, really get a good check on you, do more than just an ABI and all that. And we went back in and they were like, yeah, you're still pretty blocked. It's pretty bad. And at that time they shipped me to another hospital out of state. And when I went out of state, that's when they came in, and it was terrible. And I didn't understand how bad it was. And when he broke it down to me and explained it, he said that it looked like, someone just came in the middle of the night and took my artery out. So that's when he started talking about amputation and those sort of things. And they had talked about it previously with my vascular surgeon back home. They had talked about when they first found out I had more blockage, that may be our answer. And then when I went out of state, they were like, yeah, that's definitely the answer, and probably more sooner than later kind of attitude.
Okay, so it was your primary care doctor that when you went to see your primary care, he said you realized it was that. Did you have a cut on your foot? You ended up after you had the fasciotomy, you went home, you had a couple follow-up ABIs, and then you ended up with a wound on your foot that wasn't healing. Yes. What was the timeline between the two, the fasciotomy? You had a couple ABIs, and then you ended up with the wound on your foot and you had to go back. I assume that's when you discovered, hey, you know what? You have a lot more blockages and you need to go out of state.
I would say a year, maybe somewhere in that frame. It was a bit more than just, I came home and then there was a time frame when the ABIs were showing real low.
So while that is going on, are you still working? Just doing
for a significant amount of time I wasn't. Okay. I think I was off for 4 months. And then when I went back to work, they put me on light duty, and I had went and spoke with the doctor, and he said, let's give it 2 or 3 more months. I came back to work and went back to work. I just told him I was okay. Went back to work.
And we've got about 30 seconds left, but I mean, you look like kind of an alpha male to me. I imagine that's pretty difficult when you're used to kind of being a go-getter, and now all of a sudden you can't work, you can't do what you want to do, or you're limited. But there's also in the back of your head, like, man, I could lose my leg over this. Like, what? That, like, psychologically, that's got to be pretty intense.
For a few minutes. I sat there and like when he told me the first time, my first doctor here, man, I sat in a room for a minute. I just needed a minute. And then after that, I thought, man, who is he to tell me I've got to cut my leg off? That's not happening. I'm not doing it. And something just told me, if you work hard enough, this won't happen. And I put the work ethic behind it. And we got to a point whenever, when I went out again, like I said, to another doctor out of state, and he said, we're probably going to amputate you sooner than later. I was like, yeah, you'll never see me again. I'm not coming back here.
Well, coming up next right here on the Heart of Innovation, we're going to find out just how he ended up not seeing that doctor ever again. And did he end up with amputation or not? We'll find out next right here on the Heart of Innovation, a Save My Piggies special on KDOW, so don't go away.
Your type of condition is called critical limb ischemia. It's the most advanced form of PAD or peripheral arterial disease.
Every 4 minutes, there is an amputation in this country due to PAD and diabetes. We also know that 85% of these amputations are preventable with early intervention.
It's a flip of the coin. Patient prognosis is tied to whether or not they are referred to a true expert in the management of peripheral arterial disease.
Do you know if your physician is an experienced CLI operator?
When you're in the hospital dealing with doctors and stuff, you figure they know what they're talking about.
The skill level varies doctor from doctor and hospital to hospital.
Patients with limb threat are in constant fear. The depression that someone experiences after they lose a limb is equivalent to those of losing their spouse of 40 years.
I was stuck in a wheelchair close to 2 years, and my husband had to quit work.
I didn't know what to do at this point because we had nothing but infections and hospital stays and infections and hospital stays.
And they took one toe, another toe, and then it was another toe, and then half his foot before he was even diagnosed with PAD.
And all I heard was, "What are we doing here? Just cut it off." And I pulled the curtain back like, "Are you kidding me?
Do you really want to go through all that?"
That's crazy. That's insane.
The protocol is to send them to amputation. Always, always, always get multiple opinions.
We do have options.
We need to listen more to our patients.
If you're going to chop off their leg anyway, why not just let someone else try?
This is the progression. First comes the wounds, and then comes an amputation. And I wasn't going to accept that.
So that's what it's like to try to save a leg.
Welcome back, everyone, to this Save My Piggies special. We've been talking to John about his heroic story, and still to this point, he was not officially diagnosed with peripheral artery disease. He was told every other reason why he was having the procedures, had the fasciotomy, and that he was going to get his leg cut off. And all they would say is your arteries are narrowed and it's all because of the nicotine. Dr. John, do you see this a lot with patients coming to you and they have been told for years on end that they just have narrowed vessels or they have blood clots, but it's actually PAD, and you become the first person to say, hello, it's PAD?
Well, Kim, this is why you do what you do and why we do Save My Piggies, because we need to educate people and the community, because clearly he had, if I understand it correctly, John had underlying peripheral arterial disease or narrowing in the arteries. He had classic symptoms of what we call claudication, angina in the legs when he was running and trying to get through the academy and working. And then something happened where there was really a clot or something or whatever, stopped blood flow, and the leg was threatened. He went through that time period of the leg being kind of saved to then, as I understand it, developing a wound that didn't heal. And that is from the quote narrowing in the arteries. So he had peripheral arterial disease. I have to imagine they did testing, and John had mentioned the cuff pressure testing and things of that nature. And so people knew that he had it. We probably just didn't communicate to him well enough or emphasize the severity of the disease process and how it has a very high morbidity and mortality rate, meaning more complications from a medical standpoint and potentially death. I mean, you mentioned it in the intro, higher rates of death and PAD, particularly people that have ulcers, than certain cancers. So definitely we need to do a better job, and I'm a broken record here, you're a broken record, of educating our patients on this.
And so, John, it was a year before you ended up, you had 4 months that you were on leave. You did light duty, right, for a little bit. And then you ended up lying to your boss and going back on the force, full force. And suddenly you ended up with a wound that wouldn't heal. And it wasn't until that point when someone actually called it what it is. But how did you injure your foot? And then take us to the point where you got the diagnosis, what he said the answer was, and the story continue from there.
When I had the wound on my foot, I'm not real sure how I got it. I had a lot of nerve damage during the fasciotomy. So my toes were kind of numb, I guess, in my foot. And that could have been a peripheral artery disease for all I know. But it was a small wound. I mean, it wasn't even a big wound, but it was enough to where it aggravated me a little bit. And time just kept going on, and it didn't get any worse, but it wasn't healing at all. And so by this time, I'm with my wife that I have now. We were dating at that time, and she said, "You need to go see your family doctor." And I'm going to tell you, she's kind of a stickler to me, like makes me take my medicine and that kind of thing. And
yep, I love her.
Yeah, oh yeah, she's
a good girl.
Where is she?
Yeah.
Can we bring her in?
Yeah, she'll probably come talk to you. Yeah,
that's awesome.
But anyhow, I went to my family doctor, and I have a really good relationship with him. I've been his client since he started, and he set me down and he said, "Okay, you're not diabetic, and you're not pre-diabetic." He said, from what I'm gathering from your medical history and what you're telling me and what I'm seeing, I think you have peripheral artery disease. I want to get you sent and checked." So when they do send me, that's whenever they're like, "Oh yeah, you have peripheral artery disease," and my blood flow,
which you've had for years.
Absolutely, yeah.
In retrospect,
once the blood clot came, it just got worse. And at that point, he treated it with ointments and things like that to get the first aid end of it. But then when he sent me in to get me checked out for peripheral artery disease, and it was verified, and then they sent me from there. They found out I had a little bit more blockage. They wanted to open that up, of course, and it didn't work. And how come it didn't work was my vascular surgeon at the time, which isn't the same one I have now, says that he can't even go in and clear it out. It's so narrow. And at that point, he sends me to another state and to see a specialist. And
did that make sense to you? Because I always try to learn from a patient's perspective when someone tells them that. Do you just accept that in your mind, thinking, "Oh, okay," or were the wheels turning? Obviously, they had enough insight to maybe send you someplace else, somebody that different tools, whatever. But are you thinking, is this normal, or what am I, where's this going to end, right? Or how's this going to end up, I guess?
Yeah, well, I was scared for just a little bit. I was scared. And that is when they went out and told my family and my girlfriend at the time, which is my wife now. They went and told her, they said, he's probably going to lose his leg. And my mom, of course, she lost it. Her baby's laying there. And my dad actually looked at Jennifer, my wife, and said, "If you get up and leave now, we don't blame you." And
you're going to make me cry.
Well, she was like, "No, I'm here for the long fight. I'm not turning my back on him." And then we go to the doctor they sent us to, and he's 100% like, hey man, we don't have nothing to even anchor to. And it's coming. So, it'd be better sooner than later. And when he was saying that the whole time, I was just sitting there thinking, this is terrible. And he's like, there's a little bit of blood flow. It may be a couple months. We kind of went down that road. And the whole time he was talking, I was thinking, yeah, that's not going to happen. I can fix it. And I took it on myself to try to figure out, I did the whole research on my own. But one thing that rang true on everything, there was a lot of misinformation I found along the way. But a lot of things that I found that was, rang true every time was collateral veins. And I kept looking into these. What are these collateral veins? How do those work? What is that? And man, it was an answer that I already knew. I already knew. Well, the more exercise, the more blood you push, well, the more it builds veins. I knew that already. I just couldn't put that together. And when I saw all this about collateral veins, I went back to my family doctor and said, hey, what about these collateral vein things? Tell me about that.
And coming up right here on the Heart of Innovation, we're going to find out how he built those collateral vessels and what he's doing now. So stay with us right here on the Heart of Innovation, our Save My Piggies special on KDOW. So don't go away.
I've been using the same kind of commentary for all my patients. When you try to describe PAD and the concept of angiogenesis or creating new blood vessels to kind of go around blocked arteries, what you're trying to tell patients is you want to push through. You're not going to open up these clogged arteries, but as long as you're not smoking, you're taking an aspirin and taking your statin, as you push it, you'll have this concept of angiogenesis to create these alternate collateral blood vessels. But if you just stop walking right when you feel pain, that process won't initiate. You won't get angiogenesis if you just stop at the first moment of pain. So my message to patients is you really want to create these alternate pathways. You've got to walk. As you start to feel that burning and pain in your calf and you want to stop, don't stop, take 20 more steps. And right as you're in so much excruciating pain, take 5 more steps. And right when you're done with those 5, give me 2 more. So I'm telling them to just keep pushing it. And over a period of weeks, it's not one day, but weeks and even months, they'll walk further and further without having the pain. And so that's my spiel.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another fantastic Save My Piggies. I mean, the theme of the Save My Piggies these days is resilience, right? I mean, we hear from patients who just, like John, you said, no, that ain't going to happen. And you spoke to the amputation. Really, our charge here is to educate patients and be an advocate for them. And John, you are a light in sometimes an otherwise dark room that says there is hope, because you could have easily listened to the doctors. And I can't speak to what they were thinking. And I have to believe that they have your best interest at heart. But that's your leg, right? I mean, and you are a deputy, a sheriff's deputy. You need to be able to move around to do your job. So you said, no, I'm not going to do that. And got on the internet, I presume. You looked up the collaterals. So the collaterals, for folks, we've talked about this a lot, these are kind of small blood vessels that actually exist within the body. And some people have more than others. And and everything runs by pressure in our body. And so the vessels aren't necessarily there when there's a larger vessel that's open because the blood's flowing through that. But when that large vessel closes, these smaller ones kind of spruce up a little bit, right? And they become bigger, and they can collateralize or perform the task of a bypass. Essentially, they're natural bypasses, and that's what you had. I would imagine after your first event where you had that blood clot, you had some collaterals already. Like those collaterals were there, and that's what saved your leg, and that's what prevented any further damage, I think. So you're basically faced with this choice. I'm either going to lose my leg or I need to do something different and maybe get out of that area. So you chose the latter, and it went well, right?
It went very well. Yeah. It wasn't a miracle or anything like that. I mean, I still go into claudication at times, but it's few and far between now. It's not nearly what it once was. When I first started this fight, I started with a little bit of walking, and I always weight lift, so I kept that regimen going. And I know that it didn't help my legs as much working my upper body, but as long as that blood's moving, it's going to create something. And I didn't look quite, I mean, I knew it took a little bit for me to understand about the collateral veins. But once I started thinking to myself, man, that makes all the sense in the world. And how I understood it was you have a stream and it's blocked off. Well, eventually, if it's blocked off long enough, it's going to cut its way through the grass and through the dirt, and it's going to make another way, and it's going to hook back up with the stream later until it runs into the big river, which is your heart. And that's how I understood it. So I thought, I want to build as much of these collateral veins as I can. And I could tell that I was doing something positive with the building of the collateral veins, because I could see smaller veins whenever I would work out. I could see in my hands and in my arms and things. So I was like, it has to be working down there too. It has to be doing the same thing. So I changed it up from just walking to occasionally I would take some kettlebells and walk upstairs and carry
kettlebells. How often do you hear Dr. John, a PAD warrior, with kettlebells going upstairs? Holy cow.
Never.
Never. This is a first. This is a Save My Piggies first, John.
Save My Piggies. Right, exactly. Love it.
Well, I got a lot more of that. So I had decided I'm going to add things back in that I wasn't doing anymore because of my knees were bad and all that stuff. Just came with my age. But I said, well, I'm going to start squatting again. And I know that's going to put veins in there. There's no way it's not. And man, I started out with 100 pounds. And to me, 100 pounds of what's the balloons?
It's like if I put my hand in my temple, the balloons go off. But
okay.
Again, so just so the listeners understand, when we interview folks on Save My Piggies, it's typically they're just trying to walk, let alone lift weights, let alone squat, let alone use kettlebells. So, and make sure you watch this episode because John's he's a big guy. And so like this guy, John lifts some weights. So you were bound and determined, come hell or high water, to get yourself back into shape and develop these collaterals, right?
It was almost an obsession. Mm-hmm. Every day I kept thinking, I'm not doing enough. Every day I kept thinking, I'm falling behind. I'm not doing more than I did yesterday, so I'm falling behind. And I put a goal in my mind when I started squatting, and I started out with 100 pounds. And to me, that's not a lot of weight. And I thought, I'll be happy at 300 pounds again. I'll be happy. I hit 300 pounds. That wasn't good enough. I had to go to 4. Then I had to go to 5. And now I have a torn, I can't remember the name of the muscle that's in my glute, but it's torn now. And that's kind of slowed me down a little bit. But in the gym every day, I haven't probably since 2015, I've probably missed 40 days in the gym since then. I go every day.
So that's a great point. We didn't talk about this journey. How long? So when did they suggest you needed an amputation? What year was that?
Probably 2018.
So we're 7 years into this journey. Ish.
Close, yeah. Okay. Well, no. I'm a little confused on my timeline here. When they first started talking about amputation was probably 14 or 15, somewhere in there.
So regardless, it's longer than that. I mean, again, that's just more inspiration and testament to your the perseverance, and you must have a hell of a positive attitude right between these years, huh?
Well, you can say that, but everyone that knows me knows they call it stubbornness. That I'm the most stubborn human being on the planet. I don't believe in pain can stop you from doing anything. I mean, there's nothing that can hurt me enough to where I can just stop. For example, when I was in the academy, they were going to tase me. They were like, "Oh, this is terrible." Everybody was all, it was like, it's 3 seconds. I could do anything in the world for 3 seconds, and I'll be fine. It hurt, but
did you get what is that? What is that?
How do you compare getting tased to the worst claudication pain, like a tourniquet around your leg? Is there any comparison?
I'd rather get tased.
I'd probably wet myself. That'd probably
because the tasing's 3 seconds and then you're done. I mean, and it feels like you had a massage when you're done. There's no aftermath or anything. It feels good actually after you're done. But at the time it sucks. But But the claudication, man, that's just a different kind of animal. The pain that comes with that. And it's so frustrating because your blood pressure goes up. And it's so frustrating because you know it's coming. You know when it's coming. And it's just worse.
How in the world did you really persevere through that pain? Because you see in our network of patients, in our groups on Facebook at padsupportgroup.org, that so many people, they can barely even get to their bathroom, let alone, let's say, the kitchen or the mailbox, or even get to the gym. And I can imagine with the blockages you have, and especially following a fasciotomy where they said really nothing could be done and they want to cut off your leg, that pain must have been wretched. And I just don't know how you did it.
I've always believed, like I said, pain is just an emotion. I mean, it's just something that you can block pain if you really try hard enough. Of course, there's some you can't, but for the most part, if it's a chronic pain, if you got through it yesterday and it took you a little bit of time to get through it, shave that time off every day until you can get through it. It was terrible. What I don't talk about in the group a lot is the times whenever I'm in the gym and I just can't go no more. And I lay on the floor, and Jennifer had a great picture of me. I was laying in the floor in a puddle of sweat, tears in my eyes. And she's like, this man works so hard. But that's part of it. You know, you got to cry. If it hurts, cry through it, move through it.
But it's okay to stop, but start again.
Yes.
Like you have to stop
okay
sometimes.
to
Just keep going.
Yeah, because if you try to push it just a little too far every time, you'll never get anywhere.
100%.
Well, coming up next right here on the Heart of Innovation, our Save My Piggy special, we're going to have final thoughts. And yes, we're going to get to whatever that Netflix West Virginia show that you've been talking about. Stay with us right here on the Heart of Innovation, our Save My Piggy special. Don't go away.
I think the biggest thing, and I could think of 5 or 10 patients that were misdiagnosed with acute limb ischemia. And it had not been the kind of acute that's the 10 out of 10 pain, but it was a 5 or 7 out of 10 where the primary care physician thought it was something else, thought it was a pulled calf muscle, thought it was arthritis. And these patients kind of were really delayed in their presentation. And then it becomes a real tour de force to kind of restore the blood flow. And you're really hoping that you can do it. And number two, hoping that you can do it and they still have neurological function, because the nerves are most sensitive to the lack of oxygen. And when you don't have blood flow, the nerves take a hit first. So if you can restore everything and you don't have dead muscle, you really want to hope that you don't have dead nerves, because with a dropped foot, it's really hard to rehab and get back to your normal activities. So I would say the biggest and the most memorable patients are the delayed presentations for acute limb ischemia. And this really comes down to patients questioning it and primary care physicians understanding as well, because these are the docs that initially missed it, because these patients do seek care and they expect their primary care physician to understand PAD or acute limb ischemia, and these patients in particular were missed.
Welcome back, everybody. Wonderful Save My Piggies. So, John, you're in West Virginia. You're a sheriff's deputy. Back in 2009, there was a show on Netflix. I think it was something called The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia, about the White family. Jesco is like, I forget, was he not the patriarch, but he was the ringleader.
Yeah,
it's
he was
crazy.
A dancing outlaw. Yeah.
They're not dancing outlaw. Crazy stories. Like when we were prepping, you said, yeah, I arrested all of them. So please, you have to indulge me. Tell me a little bit about it if you can.
I arrested Jessica for selling pills to Mamie. Mamie White was the one that said, you know, there's people I put in the mine shaft. She's never put anybody in the mine shaft. They're the snitchingest people I've ever seen in my life. They tell on each other all the time, and they've called my house and be like, hey, my cousin's doing this.
You want to hear the Boone County mating call? Come get it, baby.
And you're like, oh, I don't really care. But they're outlaws. They're actually good-hearted people. When it comes down,
you kind of get that.
If they like you, they'll do anything for you. But here recently, one of the younger ones, I don't even know his name. He kind of lost his way a little bit, and he actually shot at me twice. And yeah, it was bad.
I think in the Netflix, one of them shot somebody and went to jail or something. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Same guy. He's out now. It's the same one. He's in a wheelchair now. It's the same one.
Yikes.
Yeah,
but so that segues into, you're doing your job now, right? You're working, you're doing what
Yeah.
you want to do, you're doing what you love, you're in the gym, you're busting your butt, and you're an
Yeah.
inspiration to, again, you got to see John. John is we said they call you Little John, like Robin, because you're a big boy. But we've got 2 minutes left. What do you want to say to someone who's laying on the couch right now with PAD that just doesn't have the motivation to get up and do it, or just says, I can't, I've got too much pain? What can you say to them to get them fired up?
What did you do yesterday? Just think about that. What did you do yesterday? If you laid on the couch yesterday, and that's all you did all day long was laid on the couch, get up and walk around the couch 5 times, step back down. You did more. Tomorrow, do it 7 times, then do it 10 times. Do it to where you spend an hour just walking in a circle in your house, up and down your street, whatever. But do a little more than you did yesterday, and you'll always come through. Whatever's happening to you, you'll always pull through if you work harder than you did yesterday. No one's ever been successful at anything by saying, well, I'm taking today off. It doesn't work that way. Just push a little harder. And like you said earlier, when it hurts, sit down, get back up, go right back at it. There's nothing wrong with taking a break in that pain. You just got to push, man. There's nothing worse on your body than laying dormant. That's the worst thing that you can do.
And the other worst thing you could do is literally just give in, right? Give into it.
Yeah.
And if you give in, you're giving up. And this is a disease that there is so much that you can do. I mean, did you ever go back to your doctor and say, hey, look at this, look what I've done. I didn't need an amputation. I don't need an amputation. And now maybe you, right? And now maybe you as a doctor will inspire your other patients. Instead of offering amputation, you offer walking as medicine.
Yeah, I recently have a new vascular surgeon, and when he looked at me, I was afraid. I had piriformis. That's what I was thinking about a minute ago. I want to make sure I didn't have blockage in my leg. And when he looked at me, he's like, man, you're wide open down there on that side. You're doing good. So, yeah. But that was my better side anyway. Yeah.
That had to be the most gratifying moment that affirmed that you made the right decision and all your work had paid off. Something you thought was vascular turned out to be something completely different, and you must have breathed a big sigh of relief.
But I didn't think I could sit back on my heels now. I thought I could turn it up a little more, turn the volume up just a little bit more.
This one goes to 11. That's John, a complete inspiration to not only people with peripheral arterial disease, but just the world in general, I think. So kudos. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. I from the bottom of my heart, I wish you the best. We wish you the best. You got to come back, brother, and you've got to come. I don't know, man. Just keep bringing it. I love it. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
When your sugar runs high, it's more than a sign. Diabetes creeping in, it's a dangerous line. Pre-diabetes too, don't think it's too light. It can lead to PAT, so start the fight. Sugar's sweet, but the cost is real. High blood sugar makes your arteries feel clogged. Slow flow, it's a ticking time bomb. Catch it early, stay strong, and keep your legs on. Sugar's not so sweet when your leg is in pain. Not controlling sugar is where peripheral artery disease sets in. Got sugar? Get checked. Don't wait too late. Save your legs, save your life. Take control of your fate. Leg pain, cold feet, neuropathy too. These are signs diabetes causes.